Hey, happy money man.
Yeah, what's going on, June?
How's it going, Brandon?
Doing good. Am I live?
Yeah, you're live. Everyone, I can hear you and see you, and I'm sure everyone else can too.
Cool, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, thanks so much for helping out with kind of getting everyone rounded up for all the sessions. And so, Brandon, you've been doing a great job helping me. So thank you for that. So yeah, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and and feel free to just start your presentation right after. And your screen sharing is yeah, I'm sure
Cool,
you.
man. Yeah, I'm good on the screen sharing. I'm just gonna go for it here. So yeah, pleasure to see you guys. The EOS community is fantastic. I got started in the Steemit community. I'm a Steemit witness. I love DPoS. I've just been full-time blockchain advocate for a while now. And what I'm talking about today is transparency versus privacy on the EOS blockchain. To me, this is one of the most important things that we can look at is these transparency issues on EOS. The reason is because this is the trade-off that we made. We want a fast blockchain. We want a bunch of transactions so that we're going to have this mass adoption so the dApps can build. But the trade-off is now that the argument is that we have more centralization. The way to combat centralization is quality transparency and quality governance. So to me, this is where EOS is going to make itself or break itself. So very important. I'm going to talk about three issues on transparency with the block producers so that we can get an idea and try to flush out both sides of the arguments here. So one interesting one that I came across in my research was communications transparency. So as you know, when we first launched the live chain, we had about 100 wallets that were compromised, and the block producers came together, got on a conference call. They came to a solution that worked and made that happen. But then the chatter starts and people wonder, well, what's going on? These guys are all talking to each other. They're getting to know each other. People are having this image of everyone in a back room, smoky, dark room, making deals and trading secrets and things like that. So EOS Nation, and that's clearly not what happened. The block producers are very transparent, and I know everything that happened on the call. And, it was actually a beautiful thing how people came together and made a decision like that. But to combat kind of the perception, EOS Nation had a cool idea, which was live streaming the conference calls. So that would be full transparency, live stream the conference calls. There's no chance to edit any recordings or anything like that. One of the issues that comes up, the argument against live streaming, is there is some sensitive information. You wouldn't want, let's say, a hacker watching the live stream, maybe trying to get ahead of the fixes that are being put into place. So there is a system in place for things like that. It's called going in camera for sensitive information. So you'll see that sometimes in the courtroom or things like that. But if sensitive information comes up, it would be transparent why they're going to go in camera and go off live. And people could see that. And so it'd be an interesting way to just let people into the communication that's going on, the reason these decisions are made. And that is not only really interesting, but really important just for people to understand what the block producers are really doing, because they're doing big things. And then also minutes of the calls. So communications, transparency, not too hot of a topic. I have two more. The topics get hotter as we move forward here. So the next one is financial reporting. So Crypto Lions was one of the first that put out their financial kind of their details of where all their EOS rewards were going, how the money's being spent, etc. This was, them just kind of leading the charge. And over time, this is really going to develop. So I will give you guys a link later with the list of the Steemit, their Steemit article where they did their financial reporting so that you can see what Crypto Lions did. And then the financial reporting is going to have to evolve over time. So one thing, I got this from EOS New York, was block producers are going to need to experiment with the frequency of their financial reporting. So sometimes we may think, okay, let's just see it every month. What are you doing every month? But that is kind of handcuffing them or giving them a lot of unnecessary work in some opinions. And if you look at something like bigger corporations, like Wall Street reports quarterly every 3 months. But what this ends up doing is tying corporations into a, kind of this cycle of reporting, as you're familiar with, where they're trying to do short term to have these beautiful reports coming out that show they're doing good, but then they're never focused on the long term. So there is an argument for possibly, even though we'd like to see everything every month, maybe there's also the other end of the spectrum where maybe we see it every 6 months, very detailed report of everything that happened and what the projection for the next 6 months is. And then that gives block producers the freedom to focus on long-term goals and not being short-sighted. So there are international standards. Not everyone does the quarterly reporting like we see block producers. So this is something that we're going to need to experiment with over time. So yes, financial reporting is a huge transparency topic for block producers, but also stay open-minded that there is going to be, some experimenting, some tweaking, and it's important we stay on top of it as a community, but just stay open-minded to how the reports are done and kind of look for people leading the charge, like Crypto Lions. You can see where they started, and you can look into what EOS New York's doing. And basically, this is really a nascent technology. We don't want to start putting these like regulations or requirements on it right off the rip before we know what's going on. The third part is BP ownership disclosure. This is the last part of the talk here: transparency versus privacy. This one gets really interesting. So right now, the ownership disclosure, if a investor owns 10% or receives 10% of the rewards for a block producer, they have to disclose who they are. Now, some people call for, what if someone owns 9%? Well, we want to know who owns what percent. We want to know all the percentages of all the owners. Now, the reason that there's a call for full transparency with the ownership is, let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Let's say I'm a EOS whale and I have enough EOS to push the market or push votes around. And I spin up, let's say 5 or 6, a bunch of BPs, a bunch of nodes, and then I go spin up a bunch of WordPress websites. I don't add anything to the community. I vote for myself on all of those different BPs that I've spun up. I just sit somewhere in the middle range of block producers, anonymously making a profit, but not adding anything to the community. So off the top, people say, okay, well then if we showed every percentage of who owned companies, you'd be able to see if one whale owned a percentage of a bunch of block producers that weren't adding value. Now, the counterpoint to this is, yes, that full transparency, but what about privacy? What about the reasons that we got into the blockchain? A lot of us got into the blockchain looking at our personal freedom, our personal privacy. And there's people who just are investors who may want to remain anonymous for many reasons. Maybe they just don't want their family to know that they are, or their wife or business partners to know that they are invested in a block producer. Maybe they don't want to be a target for hackers, because large crypto holders are targets for hackers constantly. So it's hard to demand that anyone that's invested in a block producer needs to disclose that. So the solution for the block producers is to be active, to vote actively, for all of us to get in and vote as much as possible, because really this is about sovereignty. This is about our personal freedom. And so yes, there's a big onus on block producers to be very transparent, but in the same trade-off, we need to take a lot of responsibility for ourselves as far as who we vote for, why we vote for them, etc. So that is kind of a wrap up, just to get people thinking about transparency versus privacy, and really how we can do as good as we can as holding block producers accountable going forward. And I'm part of the media, so I look to do that with block producer interviews, putting information out there as much as possible. You can find me on Steemit. I'm a Steemit witness. You can find me on YouTube. I got a YouTube channel. I have the EOS podcast that I just started. I have the Steemit podcast that I just started. So you'll see Steemit and EOS podcasts coming out along with that. And I will give you the link.
Hey, Brandon, are you here?
Sorry, I was cutting out there. June, am I back?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give you the link, and then I'm going to answer some questions here. Here's the links. So question, it looks like, Ben, what's the issue with a whale owning or investing in more than one BP? So it's not necessarily an issue with, that's not the issue. The issue is the scenario where that whale spins up maybe 5 to 6 block producer nodes, and then 5 websites that makes it look like they're all different, and then is not involved in any projects, is not involved in doing anything to make the community better, really is just taking rewards out of the system. So it's a small manipulation, but it's something that's very possible. And so the way to combat that, what I'm saying is the way to combat that isn't by full transparency and not putting these people out there, because you can't do that to everyone. The way to combat that is to get enough people voting out there where we're able to dilute that those whales' power to do that, dilute their voting power. So we just need more votes, and that should fix that problem. In an extreme case with 30 to 1 voting, a super whale could start up 30 BPs and earn all the block rewards. Yeah, that's a pretty extreme case. I don't know. I don't really run the numbers on how far that could be taken, but yeah, I mean, this is all part of the conversation, because we're going to have to continue to tweak the incentives, and it needs to be an open-ended conversation. We need to keep looking at it, deciding, making tweaks and decisions. So what if someone wants to use an alias as an owner? Well, right now it's set that if you have 10% or receive 10% of the awards, you're supposed to disclose who you are. So, I mean, I'm sure it's not too hard to have an alias and do that. And I would think if you're using the same alias across different BPs that you're involved with, it's not a big deal. But how are we really going to track that? That's why it's most important that people are looking into what the block producers are. I mean, the most simple way to do it is be voting for block producers who are doing tangible things in the community, and get people out there and voting, because in all honesty, aliases and all this, we're not going to be able to do it by just knowing who the people are, because there's too many ways to hide our identities. Then we'd all move to Telos. We need the EOS watchdog with boots on the ground to verify certain compliance issues. Yeah, I mean, I've thought of that. I thought of a worker proposal where someone goes and visits all the block producers, boots on the ground, as you say, and verifies their, what type of equipment they're running, et cetera, and verifies how legit their operation is. That'd be kind of an interesting worker proposal. Yeah, some BPs are listed with pseudonyms in audits and things like that. We'll start to dig into all this, and people are always going to be playing games. So again, it comes back to really either proxying your vote with someone really quality that's doing the research for you, like Luke Stokes, or doing the research yourself and make sure you're voting for people who are adding quality parts of the community. One of the things that's interesting is that Block 1 hasn't voted yet. And I think that part of the reason that Block 1 wants to vote sooner than later is to kind of knock some of these suspect block producers out of the rewards area. And they have, this is just speculation here, but there's a proposal for us to be able to vote for 50 instead of 30 block producers. And part of the speculation is that if once that's increased to 50 block producers we're allowed to vote on, then Block 1 will vote because they can dilute their vote over 50. They don't want to vote for 30 and just completely skew everything. So I think that that's part of the incentive for that change, to allowing us to vote on 50 block producers, if that makes sense. The watchdogs can do that. Kevin can fly around the world and verify infrastructure and profiles and ownership. They are not voting. We can send Ben Sigmund around the world to verify the compliance issues. Yeah, well, if people are flying around the world to verify stuff, I'll get on that team. So keep me in mind there, gentlemen. Yeah, correct, Ben. Ben, are you saying they're not voting like they're not going to vote, or they're not voting currently? Because I know they're not currently voting, but I'm thinking that that they may in the future. Yeah, they're not currently voting. That's correct. And they reserve the right to vote, correct. And some of the speculation is that they're waiting until they can dilute their vote a little bit more if we up it to 50 block producers that everyone's allowed to vote on. And that can't they just stake a small amount and vote? Sugarfix, I am not sure about the all the angles on that answer, so I don't want to just start talking without thinking through that question. Cool. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Let me see if what research has gone into BitShares or DAF? Oh, that's an old question. Okay. We can only speculate. They have said nothing except if you want them to vote, email BP at EOS. Yeah, that's another interesting thing is they asked for BPs to email them why block 1 should vote for their BP, to kind of make it impartial and try to get as much information directly from the BPs as possible. So that's a good point. Block producers need a global security detail. We need a Blackwater for block producers. There you go. Yeah, but I think that idea is really cool. Of the getting boots on the ground and going around and verifying all these different block producers and doing audits, and that could be a cool work proposal. One of the issues that's come up is, what if there are legal concerns in the country where a BP owner lives? Should they be able to hide behind pseudonyms? Yeah, I would think that they should be able to hide behind pseudonyms. I mean, but that's that's me saying that without thinking. So, but we are, as Thomas Cox puts it, which I think is a good description. EOS is kind of standing on pillars in the nation that each node is on. So, and us as the people running those nodes, we're on the ground in those nations. So we're going to be susceptible to the laws of whatever country or state we're in. We're susceptible to those laws, where EOS can, kind of hover above, and they're not going to be affected, but, people can come and hold us personally accountable. So, as far as people using pseudonyms and that type of thing, if you're doing something illegal in your country, I probably wouldn't be recommended. It'd probably be recommended to get on some soil where it's okay to be doing what you're doing, or not be a block producer, or you're taking a risk. But yeah, we're in a brave new world. So the legal concerns are interesting, and everyone, every block producer's got to deal with that in their own way. But as long as it's not hurting EOS in some way. Cool. Well, oh, you know what? I should rep this real quick. I got this little EOS Detroit shirt. Give them a shout out. Saw them at Tulip Conference and they gave me this shirt, and this was a great chance to rep it. So thanks, EOS Detroit. Much appreciated. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much wrapped up, and that was fun. I liked it. Go to youtube.com, Road to Ruta, and thumbs down every video you can find. One of the biggest Yeah, I'm on Twitter too. I'm a HappyMoneyMan1. Someone apparently already had Happy Money Man, which is funny, but yeah. So HappyMoneyMan1 on Twitter, at HappyMoneyMan on Steemit, and at HappyMoneyMan on YouTube, and Steemit, the EOS podcast and the Steemit podcast. You should be able to find me. Much love, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Brandon.